Jessica. Hello friends, it's lovely to see you tonight. My name is Jane Kelly. I am, I think probably the newest member for Reconciliation for Western Sydney. I have, apart from the Building Bridges evenings over October, I've attended 2 meetings before that. So there's encouragement. If you join Reconciliation for Western Sydney, you get very involved very quickly. So thank you for coming out tonight. It's lovely to see so many people here on the final of the series on Building Bridges. I'm going to now hand over to Uncle Greg Sims to welcome us to country.
I'd like to say good evening to all and thank you for having me here. It's being an elder, it's a big responsibility. And the thing is, I have to say this, that my senior elder wasn't passed on, and yeah, we started off as elders with a community well over 20 years ago. And the thing is, and Elder always said to me, he said, you know, they just nominated us as elders. He said, well, we were elders many, many years before this. And the thing is now, he's gone, and we've done so much work out in the communities, helping people, black and white, Indian, Muslims, Asians, you name it. And the thing is now, because he's gone, it's up to me now to keep that fire burning. And I spoke to our uncle, must have been nearly 6 months ago, that we need to have more elders come on board. So that will eventually happen, because I don't know if I can handle it myself, because it's just me now. But I just hope someone comes in with that knowledge that can work with me. And if anyone's learned about being a community elder, I can take them on that journey and teach them. So, but I just got to keep on keeping on. And the thing is that, and I'm glad Auntie Lynn is here tonight, because seeing Auntie Lynn there, I said, we're like family again, you know, we've known each other for a long, well over 30 years. I said we was at the reconciliation when we started at Mount Druitt, that nearly 25 years ago. Would it be 25 years?
27 for us.
We are 27.
27.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we were there from that time. We'd go. But I'll still go out and I work with people. And I still make friends. And Jamie here, his dad, when I met his dad introduced me to Black Town Council, because he played what I was told him. I'm the last of my people that does traditional wood carving. And introduced me to Parramatta Council, and where I do wood carving, you know. But it's a wood carving is a dying art. And the thing is that I taught a couple of people how to do all this wood carving. But it's a very spiritual thing too, you know, because you've got to have the master to take you on that journey to do all this stuff. But anyways, I'm really the problem. Sorry I talk too much.
Keep going.
And the thing is that, I'll eventually get there, because I need more people to come on board, elders. So, before I give the welcome, I'd just like to acknowledge elders, past and present. And I'd just like to say, what I mean, mitigate good and bad. Hello, friends, it's good to see you. And thing is that I'm just going to get these cataracts removed. They're annoying. I can't see too good. And anyways, I'm going to do the welcome. But just before I do, I just want to say, when we take that next step, just remember the ones that walked this sacred land before. Jari Mara, Jari Katemo. Kami pada apa yang menegak ini juga pada. Mana mana pada nam. Nah itu sih guys. Dalam kamar jalan. Negara ini cari negara ini negara guys. Kuri ini guna kata guna kau. Dalam lalu ibu kekataran negara ini. Selalu ini terima guna kau. Jangan cari negara ini orang zaman. Ini gara-gara barak ini darah ke premo. Didrigo. This is dark lands, the land of ancestors. Their spirits to walk among us. Spirits that have been here since the dream time. And ancient culture has been passed down from generation to generation to continue an unbroken culture that has extended for thousands of years. In the language of our people, we welcome you to dark lands. Thank you, and have a lovely evening. But just adding to that, as I've mentioned before, that we are between two tribes, which are the Parramatta people, the Eel people, Parramatta, and also the Toongal tribe, the Toongabbie Creek mob. So thank you for having me here this evening. Thank you.
I'd just like to start with a little bit of an introduction to Reconciliation for Western Sydney and the Building Bridges series. So Reconciliation for Western Sydney started back in 1997. Some people in this room who look like they probably weren't even born at that time. Meeting monthly, they've had influence with local councils for policies and activities and have organised large and small events for the wider community, as well as having gotten to know many local Aboriginal people, organisations, and have encouraged people to participate in events and campaigns in the local area. We've been running the Building Bridges series for 25 plus years, to give Indigenous people a chance to have their voices heard, their experiences shared, and understanding for the wider community and how we can be guided in contributing to the justice and cooperation in a great future for everyone. We meet on the third Wednesday of the month, so the next one is on the 20th of November in the Regburn Community Centre on Darcy Road and Fyle Avenue in Wentworthville. Do not go to Wentworthville Library, that's the mistake I made, thinking, oh, the community centre. We are very eager to welcome new people, and you can become a member at any time. It's a one-off, $10, is that right? One-off. I've just paid it, I wasn't quite sure if it was annual. Our brochure is over with Barbara. It's annual, there we go. It's $10 annual, so clarify that. No, yeah, there's no checking up. I've gone along to meetings and no one checked up that I hadn't paid for quite a couple of months. So you're all good. So Barbara's got some flyers over there with brochures, with registration in them. So yeah, 20th of November, if you're looking for an excuse to pull out your phones, pop that in on your calendar. So there's been a little bit of a change at short notice to tonight, but I'm going to start by introducing, or getting Annie to introduce Jamie to us. Annie has been a long-term member of Reconciliation for Western Sydney, much longer than me, surprise, surprise.
Thanks everybody. So Jamie Eastwood was born in Sydney and he's the son of the highly regarded Danny Eastwood, the artist. Jamie inherits his Australian Aboriginality from his traditional grandmother's country, the Warriner, far western New South Wales, Gamba tribe, His spiritual birthplace, Gadigal Lane in Sydney, New South Wales, and the ancestry of his mother, who was a descendant of King Bungaree of the Hawkesbury Gurungai Doric people. So he's got it on both sides. Jamie spent most of his youth growing up in Blacktown. It is here that his connection to his Aboriginality, passion for art, and local Aboriginal cultural histories was able to grow. Through exposure, learning from Aboriginal elders, and working with the Blacktown Aboriginal community, all have provided the theme for his artworks since he began to paint at the age of 15. Stylistically, Jamie utilises both traditional Aboriginal techniques, such as dots, but also incorporates unorthodox, non-traditional techniques with the use of imagery, colour and contemporary narratives. His art is a fusion of the past, present and future, and represents an Aboriginal artist who has been influenced by both their Indigenous history and current Western upbringing. Thank you, Jamie.
Can I add one thing? If you haven't been at the Parramatta River, watch out for the wonderful mosaic on the ground. He did it. And it's a message also of actually facing the past, facing our history and moving forward with the river.
That's right. That's right.
And many murals in schools and many places. Public art. Him.
Thank you very much for that.
Many for that.
Everyone, look, I'd also like to say a lot of many hello friends, and I'm very proud to be here today and see so many lovely faces. And I'm going to show you a little presentation of my artwork because I'm not so much a public speaker. I like to speak through my artwork, and by having the images up there, I can talk to them and explain where I'm coming from and my journey as an Aboriginal person, learning culture, and why I paint and how I paint and why I do it. So I'm going to get the young fellow to put the first slide up. So as you know, well, look, I come from Gamba tribe, Brewarrina. That's on my father's side. Now that was my army's favourite fishing ground.
Like Kathy Donnelly, the one we heard a few sessions ago. She's from Brewarrina.
Oh, there you go.
And Lily Shearer.
Oh, Lily.
Etc. etc.
Yeah. So I don't know if you can hear me. If you need me to speak in this microphone.
That's good.
That's
It helps.
Okay. Yeah, a little bit closer.
Thank you.
There we go. So look, as I was saying, my father's people come from Gamba, by Army's favourite fishing ground. And you can see the fish traps in the back there. Now that's one of the oldest man-made structures, or possibly made by man and woman, in the world. So that has a lot of history to it, and it's a good testament to time for thousands and thousands of years. And people are still catching fish out of that to this day with their hands. Only been up to Breeders recently, and there's young kids in the river catching the yellow belly with their hands, traditionally how they do it. So culture's alive and strong out there. On my mother's side, about 3 years ago, my sister done a ancestry research and discovered that we were related to King Bungaree, or people. We have a direct line to King Bungaree. So I'm very proud of that also. But in saying that, I'd like to acknowledge that I have a Scottish history and a British history too. So I acknowledge that too. And I'd also like to acknowledge Uncle Greg, Arnie Lynn. Now, I was lucky enough to grow up with Uncle Greg and be mentored by him. We travelled the countryside, I guess, teaching in schools and different things. So I've taken a lot on board by growing up with Uncle Greg and Uncle Wes. And so, as I said, I'm an artist, and we might see some of my art, and I'll talk through that, okay? Yeah. All right. So this painting here, this is a do about our native institute out at Blacktown. And I was inspired to do this painting because my grandmother was part of the stolen generation. She got taken to Parramatta Girls' Home here. But the reason I wanted to paint this picture, I'd gone through school and I'd never learned about this place. But my high school was only a kilometre down the road. The history of this place was never taught to me as a boy at school. Through family, we knew people were stolen and that, but such a historical place in Australia's history was never taught to me at school. I mean, this ain't going back 20 years. So I think the education department's changing a little bit now, and historical places such as Blacktown Native Institutes are being put on the map. So I've done this painting from a stylistic point of view where we done our artwork by looking down, aerial perspective. So I've tried to map out the landscape. I don't want to have the presence of the children that were stolen. So if you ever go out to the Native Institute, it's a very, it's a happy place, but it's a sad place at the same time. I mean, it's been given back to Aboriginal people, but you still have a presence of sadness. So I thought I'd represent the children. Children being children, we know, they used to play under all different types of circumstances. So actually used some ochre from Fells Creek that runs through there to paint the silhouettes of the children. And that's proudly hanging in Blacktown Library now. Yeah, so I made a big award and that. And so that's to honour my grandmother and the Blacktown Native Institute. Okay.
That's where they got the Silk Creek too.
Yeah, Silk Creek. Yeah, well, actually, you had Silk Creek Ridge, which was just around the corner from it, and they've noted that area for its Silk Creek and artefacts. And that'll explain my next slide. So, art didn't always pay the bills. It doesn't always pay the bills, still doesn't always pay the bills. But look, I was an Aboriginal site officer for many years, about 20 years. And I was lucky enough to work with many Indigenous field officers right across Sydney. So doing that work, we worked in places such as Parramatta, right across the western suburbs. And it was our job to work along archaeologists to investigate the land for Aboriginal artefacts. And you'd be surprised where our people have walked, where our people have camped. You actually wouldn't be surprised because everywhere and anywhere I dug, we'd come across an Aboriginal artefact or a stone tool or evidence of Aboriginal occupation. Right in the heart of CVB of Parramatta, I imagine if we were to dig in these church grounds, we'd find evidence of Aboriginal occupation. I mean, we've been here for a long time, we've used the land and all its resources for a long time, and when I discovered these artefacts, I mean, they were deep under layers of soil, a metre deep. But to rediscover them, and be an average person to rediscover them, I'd get tingles and goosebumps up my hands because I'm the first one to actually touch that artefact when it's prior to it being met by an Aboriginal person. So, I treated artefacts with great respect, and I always ensured that the archaeologists, quite often with non-Indigenous archaeologists, I made sure that they understood that we need to treat these objects with great respect. Because they have a tangible value to them. We can date them, get history from them. But the intangible value is what I was talking about, that connection to history and culture. So when you do dig up soil, you get a thing called stratification, where different layers of soil lays itself down. So in this painting, I want to represent the different layers of soil. So, like a lot of my artwork, it deals with the past, present and future. So the top layers are bitumen, the concrete, and the different layers, and we go down through history. But all throughout them layers, there's an Aboriginal presence or a feeling. That's why I've got the hands there representing that connection. Yeah, so I'm pretty lucky to be able to do that work. I've found some major sites. I've been lucky enough to work on a lot of major sites, particularly in Parramatta, where we've found stone axes on top of each other, different sites and that. But I'm really proud of been able to work alongside my other Indigenous colleagues who've now gone on to be archaeologists. So, you know, they started out in a shovel and troweling the dirt and that, but yeah, they've gone on to future studies, and we now have Aboriginal archaeologists, which is really good. I'll get the next slide. All right, this is our Marion in the sky. Yeah, thank you. So this piece has only gone up only recently on the M4. If you drive down the M4, NRMA is used to
right.
Yeah.
That's very awesome.
There you go. Yeah. So Marrying in the Sky is a very, you know, it's a generic story that's told right across Australia. Because you can all see the emu in the sky, okay? We might have different stories of this emu, but it's found in rock engravings, and once again, look, it's told right across Australia. It's formed in the dark part of the Milky Way. It's not actually a star constellation, it's actually in the dark part of the Milky Way. And it's a seasonal indicator. So our Milky Way, as we know, our Earth revolves around the Sun, and our star systems change. So as the Milky Way dips below the horizon, it changes images, it changes form. So the emu, in that form, that tells us that there's the emu's on the move. It's hunting the male emu, which tells us that there'll be eggs soon. So that's around about May or June, and we see that up in the constellation. So come down the track a little bit. The emu actually appears a little bit different. It appears like the male emu sitting on the nest, and that tells us that there's emu eggs to harvest. Now, when we went to harvest the emu eggs, we didn't collect them all naturally because, you know, we're very sustainable with our resources. Emu lays about 12 to 9 eggs, but they only lay once a year, and it's the male's responsibility to sit on them eggs and you know, hatch them, look after them. But as our star system goes along a little bit further, around about November, December, emu actually looks like he's dipping down, having a drink out of the water. And that tells us that our rainy seasons are here, that the waters are coming and the land's been refreshed. So there's a few different other parts to this story, but they're quite complicated, and I can only talk about the parts of the story that I know. Okay, any questions at all? Feel free to fire off any question.
Where does the word Marion come from?
It's a Derek word. Yeah. He's known as Gitawa, Nundu, but on the Derek Nation he's known as Marion.
I just wondered if the suburb of Marion.
Yeah. Yeah. Get that question quite a lot, do you, Uncle, about Marion, the emu? Marion, emu.
In Blue Mountain, my grandmother's country, the other guy, we call the emu Birba.
Birba, there you go. Yeah, but yeah, as you know, we know them as Gitawan, Nundu, many different words for emu. Might have the next
Is
slide.
that true, the emu is a little run around, the female?
Yeah,
She's a little run around.
she does run around.
Used to men sit on the nest, so she'd look for another man.
No.
That one, I'm very impressed by the colours. Can you tell us how you...
Absolutely, yeah. So look, this one I try to sort of represent both sides of my culture, and as we know, we have 4 seasons in the English sort of system. So I represented that through winter, spring, summer, autumn, but we actually have 6 seasons. So the colours are representing the seasons of them: winter, summer, and autumn. And actually, I think I might add to that and add to that painting down the track, because a lot of my artwork, it's not finished. It might seem finished, but I always look about it and add to it and keep on adding to it. So yeah, that's representing the seasons, the 4 European 4 seasons, but blending in with my culture of the 6 seasons. So telling that story, I try to get that across, celebrate both sides of my identity and where I come from. As I said, I'm not a traditional painter or an artist, but I respect traditions of past and present and that, and I try to blend them together.
Hey, James, you know, the emu, is it true that if the food is not out there for the emu, for the female, she could lay the eggs in for a long, long time?
Yeah, she can do, as a survival instinct. If there's no food for the emu, it'll hold its eggs for a long, long time until food's available. And yeah, that's true. Did you have a slide before? Oh, okay. So, growing up with Uncle Greg, I've seen a lot of wood carving. And this is my attempt, Uncle. You might be able to see it too good. But I like to continue traditional culture, and now it sort of relates back to my side office work also. I've seen lots of scar trees in their natural environment. But if you go to the mountains, there was over 1,000 scar trees recorded over in Wiradjuri country. But sadly, to this day, there's only 3 standing. And they didn't fall down through natural causes or anything like that. They've been cut down and destroyed through farmers. So look, this is my attempt to sort of revitalise this art form and make it a living entity again, and saying that we continue culture by carving our trees and that. So these ones you see up here in Western Sydney Parkland. I work with some Doric artists to tell the story of the 6 seasons, and it forms an 11-kilometre walking track where you can visit these trees and read about the stories of the trees if you ever get out that way and have a look.
Where was that, sorry?
Western Sydney Parklands.
Okay.
Yeah. Might have the next one. Okay. Rock engraving, rock art. So you can see a little connection here if you think about it. A lot of the work that I'm doing is related to my cultural site work. So once again, I've been blessed to investigate a lot of our rock engravings, some that are very well known to the public and others that I've had to have special permission to go and visit. But sadly, once again, this art form's disappearing. It's rapidly disappearing. Within 70 years, a lot of our art, rock art engravings around the foreshores of Sydney. And by the way, we've got one of the biggest open-air art galleries in the world without rock engravings. But sadly, they're disappearing due to erosion, vandalism, and just time. Because these art forms, the ritual art forms, were carved once a year during ceremony time. So people got to practice their culture by recarving these images you see around the foreshores once a year. That all ceased once we had the arrival of Europeans. A lot of our culture was stopped, and sadly they were just sat there. They were losing about 6 millimetres of sand each year, and they will disappear eventually. So once again, this is my sort of attempt to keep culture going in a contemporary way. I never carve anything traditional. I'm inspired by the old fellas' work, but out of respect for them, I do it in my own style. So that's another thing that I like to do. Yeah. These ones are in Martin Place, actually. So they're in the centre of Martin Place. Yeah. Do you have any more slides? Oh, okay. So this is probably what I'm best known for, murals. I love doing murals to tell stories of country. So when I do an art piece out throughout communities, I don't just walk in there and say, look, I'm going to do an artwork. I always consult with the Aboriginal community and talk to elders and show them what I'm doing first and get their permission. Because it'd be rude of me if I just walked in and it'd be like graffiti. pretty much, if I didn't get their permission. So, yeah, these are some of my artworks. This one's outside of Mount Druitt Hospital. There's one in Redfern, one down the block. They're all over the place. But I like to use lovely bright colours to celebrate the country and tell the story of the country that I'm on. In particular, I like to do research and find out, but I also like to work with the local community and hear their stories and their histories and incorporate that into the paintings. Okay, we might have one more slide. Oh, back again. There we are. Yeah, so sometimes I like to paint with oils, and sometimes I like to tell stories about our history and that aren't very pretty, because we all know we haven't got a pretty history, and I can't bullshit our history. It's ugly. It's quite ugly. So there's a lot of truth telling that's in my painting. This is a nicer one. I didn't want to bring the uglier ones out to you fellas. They've been on show. Showing that, but they tell about genocide, and they talk about stolen children, they talk about incarceration, they talk about a lot of things that have happened in the past and are happening to this day. This is this one over here is about Macquarie and our Crow, our guerrilla warrior Pemway, and his resistance to the land. So a lot of my paintings, I do have a political side. As Aboriginal people, I think we all have a political side, because we've all got a voice to tell these truths, I guess. And so that's my way of telling these stories. I've been lucky enough to be a bit of a curator. I've done a few shows, Dad's show and a few others. And that's enjoyable, because I get to sit in the background and I don't have to paint. So, I can just create and hang paintings on the wall. But there's a lot more work than that, than being a curator. This is a dreaming story told by my grandmother, the kangaroo, or Munda, about how our wild flowers come in the beginning. Munda was a joint big kangaroo that was lucky enough to have the native seeds in a pouch, and as she hopped across the land, she spread the wildflowers, and that's how they come about across the land. Okay, I think that might be it. As I said, I'm not much of a public speaker, but I like to express myself through artwork, and I hope you enjoyed that little presentation. Is there any questions at all?
Jamie?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're talking about a lot of our art is deteriorating, like in the like we'll say up in the Burrowing Valley.
Yeah.
And with the Warragamba damage too, with my grandmother was born in Burrowing Valley. A lot of our artwork is under the border. And the thing is that what I hate today is land councils trying to put a stop to traditional owners of the land going down into the valleys and having a look around. It's just like we go to these places for a reason, to regenerate our souls. It's just like put a big lock on the church door, so people can't go in there to worship. No one's coming into the church today, no one's allowed. Exactly the same thing is going down. We're going down to our sites to regenerate ourselves, just like going into the church. Same thing. And the church is only a place where people do congregate under a tree, At the church under a gum tree or down on the riverbank. So it doesn't have to be in a building.
That's right.
And therefore, councils are trying to stop traditional owners of the land from not problem to go down onto our sites,
No, well,
because it's not a very good practice.
well, what Uncle says is correct. Sorry, what Uncle was saying is correct. Our trees were our cathedrals, our rock pillars were our cathedrals, our rock art sites were our cathedrals. They're spiritual places that we connected with. We need to visit them. We need to get them, need to see them. But unfortunately, we've been denied access a lot of the times, not only by land councils, but by parks. And I think there should be something really done about that. Yeah. Anyone?
Yes, I think you were one of the consultant archaeologists for Parramatta Square.
Oh, yeah.
And I had a chat to you there.
That's right, yeah.
And I'm wondering if you could just tell us a bit more about what you found in the archaeology right in the Parramatta, because many of us live in the area where the native feast area, so-called native feast area was.
Yeah.
Cathedral and so on.
Absolutely. Sorry, Phil. Phil.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, what Phil's talking about is a significant part of Australia's history, and a significant part of our Aboriginal history. And I shouldn't separate the two because they're all our histories. Okay. But that Parramatta Square was built on the site of the native feast, where people had come for a feast and get their blankets. But there's evidence of campfires done through Julian Pomba, who was the leading archaeologist there. There's campfires on that site that were 2,000 years old. So they had been feasting in that area long before the governor come along and give them a nice little feast and handed out blanket stuff like that. It is a very important part of Australia's history, and I believe they have a cultural museum where some of the artefacts that have been recovered are kept on country, because we believe that you should not take stones from country. They belong in that place, they're meant to be in that place, so they need to stay in that place. Fair enough, they need to go off country for a little while to be analysed, and that's where we get our history and our data from. That's very important that those rocks or artefacts get returned from the country that they were taken from. They're always meant to be there. Any more questions at all?
Maria mentioned earlier your murals along the river.
Yep.
I wonder if you could tell us a bit more of the story of how that came about.
Absolutely.
I think they're also going to be touched up soon, is that right? Haven't heard that one.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about that.
Love to.
So one of my first really large art pieces was the artworks along Parramatta River. Now they tell the story of the Barramatical people from the Dreamtime right through to the present. So they talk about the connection to the Barramatical River of the Darug people through natural resources, but it talks about the river of being a spiritual presence too. So now these rivers form part of our song lines that connected up to other rivers. So when we talk about rivers, we don't talk about them as one single entity. We like to talk about them as one continuous song line that links up and meets into others. So if you go along the pathway, that'll tell you the story of that. They'll tell you the story of natural resources of the area, but it'll also tell you the history of, Parramatta was the first place where our stolen generations were taken. It talks about that history. It talks about the violence that happened in Parramatta. Pemulwuy led 100 warriors at one stage to have a standoff. So it talks about that history. But it also talks about, it begins with white and black hands coming together. So we've got to talk about this history, but we've got to come together also. So I've made that as a happy thing. So it starts with that and it ends with a happy thing. So they're leading in together. Sadly, I was talking about art forms deteriorating and losing their way. Now I've done that in 30 years ago, and why it's very lovely, and I'm very honoured to be able to do it. Lately, I'm feeling that it's a bit tokenistic because it was just before the Olympics. Council hasn't approached me to touch it up. It's fading away. It's in a horrible state at the moment. So something that I once was very proud of, but now I'm a bit embarrassed to say that's my artwork. So I'd really like to get it touched up at one stage, but I'd like to, if I do get a chance or invited to touch it up, I'd like to mentor some of the younger Aboriginal artists to help me and tell their stories and pass on that knowledge. I hope there's no one in the council that I've offended. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
You haven't offended me though.
Okay, yeah.
Well, we'll have to push that.
Yeah. So I think it's,
We have tried before.
Thank you. Yeah. But it's in a very prominent position, and
Where's that?
along the Parramatta River.
Yeah, Parramatta River's kind of long.
Oh, right, sorry. In Parramatta CBD. Yeah.
From the wharf right up.
On the north side.
Yeah, and look, in saying that, it sort of remind me of past practices where we weren't allowed to touch up our artwork, and that they're a once-off thing. But I'd like to see this go on to future generations, so I'd like to mentor them, and if I ever get a chance to help the younger generation paint that. Because I was down on my hands and knees for 2 years doing that. Yeah, a long time. Yeah.
Well, you know, over on the Brinket Street,
Yeah.
Wilson Mary's, where the Wilson Mary Public School is, there was Aboriginal art on the side of the wall in the school grounds. And they reckon a dark woman did it. I said, no, a dark woman wouldn't have done that. That painting comes out from out of a book. So they know that because the figures got eyes. They've got eyes in them. We're not allowed to put eyes in figures because they follow you. And then if you driving past, the eyes follow you up the road. And that's one thing we won't never allow. That's when you see a lot of Aboriginal figures, they haven't got eyes in them. And the only place you find that type of artwork is down in caves, and only certain people are allowed to go down into those caves at certain times of the year, men and women. And they asked me and Uncle, poor Uncle was, if we can go over and smoke that wall and paint over the top. I said, no, you've got to get the person in that did the painting, because we're not touching it. And then all of a sudden, it was sitting there for a long time. The kids were getting terrorising the kids coming out of school. But the thing is, as I was saying, you're not allowed to put eyes in figures. And the artwork definitely came from down in the caves. So we've got to be very careful how we, I think people copy paintings out of books. Not a very good practice. And we just got to go how we were taught.
Have you ever had an issue with people copying your work or trying to put it on t-shirts or knock it off or whatever you call it?
Yeah, golly, unfortunately that happens more often than not, and unfortunately a lot of it gets done overseas. It's very hard to stop, and it's very upsetting when you see that, because as Uncle was saying, they're stories that we've passed down, we've been given permission to do that art style, and when you see someone blatantly rip it off, just for money's sake, it's very offensive and very hurtful. I think that's another thing that needs to be happening as some type of commission or into copyright with artwork, because it's happening too much and too often.
The same as in Asian countries, they're allowed to send a lot of boomerangs over here, other Aboriginal art forms, made in China, made in Taiwan. And the thing is that the law can't stop them from doing that. I don't know why.
But look, if you're going to buy one of these boomerangs, okay, and this is one of, look, this is one of Uncle's jokes actually. If you're going to buy one of these boomerangs, make sure that there's a photo of a person on there if they're signed. If you don't get that, and then you buy a boomerang, make sure you buy a dog that goes with it too. Because when you throw it, it won't return.
You were saying about how the rock art is disappearing. Now, I'm sure there'd have to be proper protocols, but couldn't the local Aboriginal, Indigenous elders agree this is an important artwork and in the right, proper way? Well, it used to be done every year. Can't continue that. Now, I'm sure there are problems with it, so make sure you...
Look, this is once again, this is another hot topic. Now, look, sadly, a lot of the way these rock engravings were done is lost forever. We're wiped out once the first European, a lot of us were wiped out. A lot of histories were kept, but a lot were lost. That's why, out of respect, I never copy an image of a rock art, because that's someone else's artwork. But I would love to see them preserved somehow. There must be a way of preserving them some way. Getting people together to come to a consensus, a cultural consensus that we all agree upon, and involve lots of discussion, lots of elders, blessings and that, and getting that consensus of everyone. But I'd like to see that art form re-emerge, where we can have ceremony. It might be a new rock platform where we can do some new artwork on and keep them practices happening. Because it was a process. The rock engravings were done over months. I'd say ceremony time, but it's done over months. They drilled with small little orb holes and eventually connected up. Yeah. Any more questions at all?
Yeah, but
No, I don't know. Simple question. Have you ever been tempted to paint Tina Ryder?
Oh, golly. What side? The good side? The bad side? No, look, I've been tempted to paint a lot of our political characters, John Howard, Pauline Hanson, all them, but it wouldn't be very pretty painting. Yeah. Sorry. That's all right. It inspired me.
Uncle Greg.
my dad, I used to watch my dad do burning on the artifacts. And my dad, he was a gun and gutter man, and also a Gadigal man from Sydney. And the thing was, he used to put irons in the fire. He used to get the Rio wire. And he used to use 3 irons. There was a round iron, there was a blunt iron, and there was a very sharp iron. You get the fine lines. And with the other flat iron, you get the heavy lines, and the round one was to do heavy dirty work. But the artwork my dad used was from the Blue Mountains. And it wasn't circles, and it's all, on his artwork there were squares, there was oblong, there was diamond shapes, and triangles. There wasn't much round, like you see that average artwork round. It was all like in square shape. That's the Gunna artwork. So that's the sort of work they used.
Different styles.
Sort of diamond, oblong, squares.
Yep.
Yeah.
Many different styles right across Australia. Any more questions at all?
The lady over there.
Oh, sorry.
Jamie. I just wondered if you might tell us a little bit about the work that you've done with your dad, particularly around Narangiji, and thank you.
Yeah, look, as I said, I'll always be Dad's apprentice. He's got big shoes to fill. So look, we were lucky enough to be approached by Blacktown Council to do some artwork in Narangiji. Now, once again, this artwork just didn't happen like that. We had to consult with the local community, Aboriginal community, get their advice, get their feedback, and most importantly, get their permission to do this artwork. So you'll notice there's a series of carved trees that represent the local native and flora in Narangiji. There's some artwork that runs along the pathway that tells the story of the local area, and also some stone engravings. But the artwork in Narangiji mainly explores the environment of Narangiji itself. It's more of a connecting to country painting. It hasn't got a political feel to it or anything like that. It's more about connecting to country and letting people know that these art forms did exist in that environment. But once again, it's one of the last pieces that I was physically working with Dad in carving trees. He's retired from doing that since because it's hard yakka. As you know, Uncle Greg, carvings. Hard yakka. Very hard yakka. So Dad's 81 now, and we've done that I think we've done that about 3 years ago, and that's the last sort of timber that he carved. But in saying that, he passed on the knowledge how to use and carve timber, which is really good. So yeah.
Maybe you don't want to answer such a complicated question. I wonder what insight you might have for Australia as a whole to reconnect with art as an expression of personal autonomy, but at the same time collective reality, all the past, all the future, weaving together, belonging to the earth and reaching out to skies. I mean, we need to connect, and we need to find this belonging so much. Everybody does, wherever we are coming from. And how could we move forward on this wisdom that you are offering for identity and belonging and so on?
Well, I think connection is a two-way street. It's about listening. So, as Indigenous people, we have stories to tell, but also from our non-Indigenous brothers and sisters, they also have stories that tell and that are quite relevant to the society that we live in today. So as a connection, we share from each other, and I think moving forward, we've always got to acknowledge the past. We've got to acknowledge that horrible things did happen. And I think, if we're going to move forward into the future and connect together, is to make sure that these horrible things don't happen again. So I think it's about listening to each other, respecting each other, and hearing each other's stories. I'm sure there's many cultures in this room that has a story of horrible things that have happened to them in their culture, and we can all learn from that, right? So I think it's about, that's a way of coming together. Now I teach young people, primary school kids and high school kids, and I have many different nationalities in that class, and I'm teaching them Aboriginal art, but I also encourage them to express their culture. So sometimes I'll have a boy do an Italian flag with a kangaroo hopping alongside it. Or something like that, and that's how we learn, that's how we get on, I guess. Yeah. Sorry.
If this is too general, please tell me. You don't have to answer. But my understanding is that people think of dots as being the main form of Aboriginal artwork, but in fact that was only certain people that used dots. Other people used quite different.
That's right. Sorry. Yeah, that's correct. And Uncle Greg was alluding to this earlier about his father's style of artwork. Now, right across this great nation of ours, there's many different, just as we have different dialects, we have 150 odd dialects. We also have numerous amounts of different art forms. Now, dots have been around for a long time. They have been used in dark artwork. They've been used in dark artwork for in cave paintings, and but the dot art form you see nowadays is mainly from the Central Desert, which was developed in the 1970s and sort of become a world phenomenon there. But when people say that dot artwork only comes from the Western Desert, Central Desert, they're wrong, because we've used dot artwork in Sydney, not as elaborate as the dot artwork you see in Central Australia, but there has been examples of dots being used throughout artwork in Sydney. Oh.
Just for the moment, yes, we will wrap up. Thank you so much, Jamie. I'm not quite sure that I have the words to articulate what's going on in my heart, but I'll attempt. Just reflecting on that art is, I find, so disarming in a way that words can sometimes, right now as an example, leave us in a limited and unable to quite express what we want. And I'm not quite sure if you could hear from where you're standing or whether you're taking it in, but I could hear gasps from around the room as your images went up on the screen. And then to have you articulate and share and just bring an extra depth to this and a new revelation in each sort of step. And I understand that we've probably done the whistle-stop tour through those images. So I really appreciate it, and I'm sure that I'm that around the room that I'm saying what is in everyone else's hearts as well. So thank you so much for coming and sharing.
Didri Gora, everyone, and look, I'd like to thank and acknowledge you fellas for the wonderful work that you're doing, and somebody's been doing it for a very, very long time, and from the bottom of my heart, I'd like to thank you all too. So now I've got to go back to the mountains, unfortunately, so I'm going to leave very shortly. I live in a little place called Mount Druitt, so I've got to take off.
Julie Clark Jones, or sometimes Auntie Julie Webb, is not here. And we don't know what happened. We made many phone calls in the last few days or weeks even, and also emails. I didn't get a response, not even from my daughter or some other people that were sick and couldn't come. Anyway, we have an alternative plan. And maybe there's always some meaning in it, so that we can digest a bit more what happened in the 4 sessions that we had now, and where do we go from here. So the first little act is somebody suggested to read a wonderful poem by one of our elders and guides, Uncle Wes Mound, who, when he was 100 years old, managed to publish many of the poems he had written for years.
Sorry, everyone, I'm back for an encore.
He had written many poems over his life, and then somebody helped him getting it published and put into a book, and several of us have the book. And one of our members here said, I would really like to share this poem about dreaming on. Dreaming on. And that's all of us. One of the most generous people on earth is probably the indigenous community of this land, with all its shades. And they always invite you to learn and listen even longer and deeper, and participate in the dreaming that is never finished. So let's hear the poem from Uncle Westman, who on the last day of August, when he was 102 years old, recently died. And the mourning is still continuing. In fact, the elders in Blacktown that meet on a regular basis on Friday mornings have had a long time of mourning and didn't meet. This Friday is the first time they will meet, and it will be dedicated only to celebrating the life of Uncle Westman. Let's hear it.
My name's Alec Nelson, and I had the good experience of working with Holy Family Community in Mount Druitt for a number of years with Father Paul Hanna. And one of the persons whom I often met was Uncle Wes. And I was glad to say that sometimes, if I hadn't been there for a long time, every time I went there, he always had that smile. He knew me, he recognized me. And I felt that was a great heartwarming experience with this man. The poem is Dream On. And I know there's a phrase we have in our language which is, oh, dream on, dream on. And it's dismissive. And this is not dismissive. This is encouraging. We are strangers in our own country. Though we've lived here for thousands of years, any trials we met, we mastered, and the land held for us no fears. Everything was as it should be. The land gave us food and rest, and we wandered the land as we wanted. This was the life we loved best. But 200 years of suppression, 200 years of strife have left us with just dregs of dignity. They have taken all but our lives. What is life without honour? What's life without being free? There isn't much to look forward to for the likes of you and me. We've now lost so much of our culture, our dreaming stories near gone, our dancing and singing near over. The old ones are left all alone. The new generation is lagging. Not much of the old ways stand. Forgotten are the ways of their people. Forgotten are the ways of the land. Can we start all over again with our youngest children first? Teach them right from the cradle, while for knowledge and wisdom they thirst. Our land and our people were happy. We were all taught right from wrong. Let us start right from the beginning. And one day, again, soon we'll be strong. Thank you, Uncle Wes.
Yes, one day we will always be, we all will be strong, but never stop the listening. Yes, it's good to remember. One of the things that brought us together, of course, is the Uluru Statement from the Heart. And that was on Sorry Day 2017, announced as the largest gathering of people of this nation ever having happened, as in this time. And it so clearly stated voice, truth, and treaty. And at the end, at that, we invite, in the movement of the Australian people, we invite everyone to walk with us. And it's about a future for all, for the land, for every person, for every culture, building on the dreaming that is here. And so many people have written now books about how do we move on, and this is just one of them that we mentioned before by Thomas Mayer, that maybe some of you will know personally, we know him quite well. And it is about building on what was and not holding back, not blaming or saying it's all finished, but allowing the pain of the no to the referendum, and many people are still very, very hurt and quite depressed. There's no doubt about it. Many, many people we know, and us in some way too. I'm still crying a lot. Anyway, the point is, the encouragement is to now focus on truth-telling. That is the direction forward. And truth-telling, like Jamie said so clearly, and remember, this was one of the phrases on his painting. In the bottom of the second painting, he had this phrase there, that it is about accepting it always was, it is, and it always will be an original land. And without listening to all of the past, we can never own our truth in being here now. So, the truth-telling is happening in many different ways. And there are many books written right now, like, by David Marr, Killing for Country, where he connects his personal ancestry to what happened in many places in Australia, from here to Queensland. And you can feel in the 600 whatever pages of the book how real it is. But also it's happening in many different events, and there's the truth-telling commissions in different places. Several states have committed to doing something about truth-telling. And the Europe Commission, Europe event, is it called Commission in Victoria, has several events where they actually did truth-telling, really serious and open and so on. And another book is by Grace Karskens, The People of the River. And that's the one we want to mention here tonight and talk a little bit about it and show a little bit of a 5-minute video clip of a longer piece. Grace Karskens is from the Balcombe Hill areas. She's, I don't know if she claims to be Darwin connected or so, but she is now retired professor for history at the UNSW, the University of New South Wales. And she wrote several books on history and how you own history and how you really participate in history rather than being a taught from on top. And the people of the river tell about the river, which is the Hawkesbury, Nepean, or Deerrubben. And you know there's a Deerrubben Council, actually, Aboriginal Land Council and so on, but it's really larger than that. It's the whole river. And in the book, she tells the story from 3 perspectives. The convict perspective, the settler perspective, and then most of all, the ancient Aboriginal perspective of this land that we are all part of in Western Sydney. And actually, the river runs not only in Western Sydney, it circumvents the whole Sydney Basin. So it belongs to all of us, wherever you might live in Sydney. It's part of the river that nurtures us all. And like Jamie said in the talk before, that the river is not one thing. It connects all over the land. And it connects with stories, with song lines, with past, present, and future. So we would like to see this little video clip out of the thing for 6 minutes or so. that Grace Gaskin in the talk that was called, what was it? Oh, yeah.
And the power of local and regional history.
Yes. Truth-telling and the power of local and regional history. That's the whole video that she has. I think it's almost 50 minutes or something. But we wanted to show just a clip of it, and then talk about with each other for a moment, where have we seen any truth-telling events happening in our area? So that could be part of doing signage, and as part of that, telling the stories of what happened here before. Where have you seen any truth-telling events in your area, or have heard about happening in other parts of Australia? And then the second one is, what needs to happen in addition to make truth-telling happen on the local and regional level, such as our level here, and how could it happen? How can we participate in making it happen? And that is partly individually, but partly as groups or as organizations that we relate to. Okay, those two parts. How we move forward with what we have learned and what we know would be helpful for the healing of the country, including all of us and the indigenous people that have suffered so much.
And you too, Philip, for organising it. It can't be easy. And thank you all for being here. I can't see you, but I know you're out there. I too would like to acknowledge the traditional owners on the country on which I speak, which is the Cadigal, and my respect to the elders past, present, and emerging. I want to acknowledge and thank any Indigenous people that are here with us today, and I also want to thank the Darug women with whom I am working at the moment. So Leanne Watson, Erin Wilkins, Jasmine Seymour, and Rhiannon Bright, and also Dark Young woman Cindy Laws. Well, in 2017, constitutional and human rights lawyer Professor Megan Davis called for a nationwide program of truth-telling through regional Aboriginal histories. So Davis was expanding upon one of the three key demands of the Uluru Statement from the Heart: truth-telling. Truth-telling about Australian history has to include stories of dispossession, frontier conflict and massacres, which underpinned and enabled colonisation. This truth-telling is a necessary prerequisite for makarata, which I think is a beautiful word. It's a Yolngu Maka word meaning the restoration of peace after a period of dispute and conflict. But there can't be any makarata, no reconciliation, without truthfulness and acknowledgement of what happened. Truth-telling about our past is the key to our future. It makes possible a sovereignty anchored in the ancient past of this continent. But the thing about Megan Davis is that she envisages more, and I'm so interested to think about the way she imagines these histories, because truth-telling through local and regional histories could not only tell that truth about frontier violence, but it could also be deeper and fuller histories, involving Aboriginal people themselves, of course. But there could be histories that are alive to cultural and spiritual continuity, to strategic negotiations, to family and community, and to the recovery and recognition of significant Aboriginal languages, places and landscapes. Now, all of those things are precious beyond words to Aboriginal people, and I do believe there's a groundswell amongst non-Aboriginal people as well, a hunger to know this deeper history of our country. But why regional histories? Well, I'm going to now share screen with a nice PowerPoint that I've made. Here we go. Yes. I think their story, Martin Kenner, puts this beautifully about regional histories. In his 2018 quarterly essay, Moment of Truth, Mark wrote about his book, writing his book, Looking for Blackfellow's Point. And I quote him, "For the first time, history became tangible in a way it never seemed to be before. What had previously been generic debates about frontier violence or the stolen generations were now brightly lit in the everyday lives of people in local communities." End of quote. So it's at the regional scale that we can recover and observe what he calls those brightly lit moments, which is beautiful, brightly lit stories. The ways that frontier violence and resistance, the theft of toddlers and babies, the rape of women unfolded, and how they affected mothers and fathers and children and families and bands of people. Regional and local histories make it real, because they avoid that flattening effect of generic, broad, and, they tend to be very abstract historical debates. And yet, those debates are there because these histories also acknowledge the shared experience of Indigenous people across the continent. It's a shared story, but it's also a regional story. I think that actually a bioregional scale, like, say, the river valleys, or the sandstone highlands, or the long saltwater coastal strips, I think they make the best sense for Aboriginal history, because bioregions so often overlap with the country of clans and bands. Human and more than human populations shared or struggled with this same country and were shaped by the same ecology and soils and climate. And there's a logic to the way that people used and regarded geographical features too. We need elemental histories of rivers and floodplains and mountains, stone, wood, earth, floods, droughts, floods especially now, and of course the years of plenty as well. So on a regional scale, we can slow history down. We can look closely at patterns of behaviour and reconstruct networks of human and environmental interactions, as well as conflict, strategies, negotiations and their outcomes over time, not just the fact, but what happened. After all, the local and the familiar matters so much to people, and for Aboriginal people perhaps most of all, because it is and always will be their country. Now it's interesting to know that a lot of regional projects are in fact already available or underway. All of them are collaborative projects involving Aboriginal people, prioritising their voices and stories. There's so many, but I'll just pick out a few to talk about or refer to. For instance, I'm always inspired by Kim Wood's work. She's an artist and an author. Her work in mapping country with her Walmajari people of the Tanami Desert, told in her.
This talk is an hour long, and she goes through a whole lot of examples of things. The immediate ones here are more from Western Australia and more applicable to that kind of thing. So we felt, well, she's given us a good lead on what local storytelling is about, and so we just thought she'd give us a good impulse to start looking at what local truth-telling around here might look. So if you want to see the rest of it, just go on YouTube and look for Grace Carstens and you'll find it.
Grace Carstens. K and K again. Carstens. Sounds a bit German. Anyway, quite a famous. What we would like you to do is meet in a small group and connect some ideas, what you have heard is happening regarding truth-telling. Like some of the places have massacre annual memorials, even around Sydney. There's one in the Blue Mountains and one in Appin, south of Campbelltown, and other places. And there's smaller regional gatherings or whatever. So just that we learn more what is actually happening already in our area or in the country. It all belongs together. And then think of what could happen and what needs to happen, and how do we make it happen, how contribute something, and what could a group like this or us individually contribute to that. Yeah? So meet together, and one of you, please, take a few notes. Can you pass this on? And with your hands. One of you take a few notes so we don't lose it. And then we collect it in a minute together. So, which group wants to tell us some of the events you talked about? And we write it up as quick as we can. So we can't have speeches, just events. What events did you talk about that are happening for truth telling? Why is this group here?
Oh, well, we looked at, but our understanding is that, the questioning of past policies, we need, acknowledging mistakes of the past and improving our better understanding of our local history, and perhaps being aware of massacres that occurred in our neighbourhoods, local areas that we're not fully aware of. But also acknowledging that, there was a breakfast point meeting in 1788. That was a meeting between Captain Phillip and Aboriginal people and soldiers, and that perhaps needs to be better understood as well.
Yes. A few events of positivity not to be forgotten. Yes, that's important. Okay, this group in the back here.
Okay, hopefully I got the notes right. But basically what our group talked about was, we were quite honest in the sense that trying to take a positive approach to thinking of what events were currently happening was difficult because there is not much happening since the referendum happened. And we think it probably attributes to feelings of disillusionment, disempowerment, a feeling of loss and mourning for what happened, for what occurred, and I think I relate to that a lot as well. We did mention a little bit through our conversations our educational experiences, where it wasn't really talked about at all. Thankfully that is slowly changing, which is great for future generations, but I guess the question is, what about everyone else, I guess? Yeah.
And we can encourage our councils to do some more on this. And the libraries, they have done some in the New South Wales library, including the Dartmouth story.
Yeah, so we had from a lot of different areas across Western Sydney in our group, really similar common theme. You can think of a lot of different events and programs that do a lot of maybe cultural awareness, cultural celebration, but they're often not necessarily coupled with the truth-telling work. Also a common theme was when there are these really bigger events, there's actually a lot, like a really stacked program, like NAIDOC week celebrations. It can actually be really difficult to find the specific truth-telling based activities and lectures within them. So that was a bit of a common theme that came up for us. Especially something we didn't mention was the Mount Druitt Reconciliation Group, or network group. Mount Druitt Reconciliation Group run a really powerful apology event every year. They would love to get the word out to more people, and especially across the Blacktown area, that it's a really powerful truth-telling exercise. It's at the Holy Family in Edmonton. Yeah, there is that. And then also specifically with Parramatta NAIDOC events, there are some really great talks and programs about truth-telling. You sometimes just have to do a bit of digging to find that within a really, really stacked program. Yeah, and something that you want to see, it was also, would really love to be able to find even some shorter form social media content, truth-telling some of those pieces, also so that it's easily accessible by young people. So that's what we came up with.
Yes.
Was there anything else you wanted to say?
Very good. Very good. Great.
I just wanted to share Uncle Jimmy Smith, who was here 2 weeks ago. He did 9 sessions in City of Sydney Council where he told history, and he was able to say stuff. But yeah, hopefully we can encourage other councils to have events like that.
And if you just find a particular elder who is willing to share their stories, like he's very knowledgeable. Yeah, someone here? Yeah.
I do want to say that things like Welcome to Country are a form of truth-telling as well. So that we should be looking at those moments as well positively. I think a lot of what was said we've echoed. Meeting the elders in Blacktown, as Maria's talked about, and Mount Druitt. Apologies if the pronunciation is bad. Bayang or Bayang? Babang. Thank you. Aboriginal Corporation, they also do have an elders meet gathering as well. And also just keeping that there's current truth-telling that needs to happen. So I was just sharing about a friend who's trying to stop fracking on her country in the Northern Territory, and so this is truth-telling that needs to happen in our current situation.
And somebody from here?
Oh, you've got another good day. The time went too quickly. We had a bit of reflection about the appreciation of having these gatherings every year. Chu and Mei particularly said that they have come for a number of years and have really valued these, so naming that this gathering is being very important and hopefully continues to be. But alongside that, I think there's some frustration and disappointment that members of our different communities are not always, don't show a lot of interest, or don't give it the priority it should be. I might ask you to add on that. But we didn't get to talk about a whole lot of other things. I might have mentioned that the wonderful event over a week that happened in Bathurst of truth-telling, that Wiradjuri elders working with the university law department held an incredible lineup of speakers and events and dance and music and art, and really appreciate all the hard work that went into that as perhaps an event that told the story of 200 years since martial law, and a focus on the frontier wars and resistance.
So that's a university taking initiative to uncover history as it was and inviting lots of other people to participate in the event. And then new documents will be coming out of it. And Wollongong University has done this first allyship summit, they call it. And they plan to do it yearly and what it means. And they do a lot of truth-telling there. And the University of Newcastle is doing a lot of mapping of all the wars across the whole continent. If you look at the maps of the original frontier wars, now it is all kinds of wars. Anyway, universities, some leadership is there, but much more needs to happen. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you for this series. We've had connections on going back. We've had connections going back a good number of years too, through the reconciliation. And as you know, I was in Southern Australia. And I think you probably remember back, like I did, we started about 1997, I think the People's Movement was launched, 1997. And it was the year after John Howard was elected. And I think we were all dismayed. We were all in a fight over, a struggle over the native title issue at the time. there's been a, and I think back to comparing the last referendum to the previous one in '67, which was so well supported. Admittedly, there was a lot different between the two, but to be this last referendum to be knocked back the way it was, and the way it was conducted, the negativity could be that started with Peter Dutton, essentially. Yeah.
But unfortunately, we need to be together. We're almost 9:30.
You're going to wind it up, yeah.
We should have many more conversations about all this stuff.
Yes, and it is a matter we just operate within a broader picture, and we need to be thinking about the broader society than just Aboriginal issues. Yeah, it's important, but it's within a broader context that we need to operate.
Yes, unfortunately, we need to
Okay,
go.
I have one.
Excuse me.
I have one for the future. How about if the refreshment of the walkway in Parramatta River was a truth-telling engagement? Getting all that together.
It's all right to our council.
Okay, one of the things we definitely need to do before we close is where do we go from here in terms of action or participation? So we made a very simple flyer here. All in the last minute in the afternoon, when we learned that she was, maybe she wouldn't come, and who knows. So alternative plans. But Mark, please, something you will do, not somebody else. Where is the sheet? You will do. Otherwise, I'm not going to do one more thing if we don't all do something. It needs to be in our guts. Our head, our heart, our gut, our walk. Please do something. Not just wait till somebody else arranges it and wait. So can you fill it out? Put your decision on your paper.
And before I lose you all to the enthusiasm of responding to a piece of paper, I wanted to say Didrigor and Uncle Greg for coming along so many weeks in this series. Thank you so much for blessing us. Thank you to Jamie for his presentation tonight. As I said, I've only been part of Reconciliation for Western Sydney for a couple of months, and so I wanted to say on behalf of everyone who has come along to this series over the last 4 weeks, a really deep thank you to the Western Sydney crew for putting this on. Thank you particularly to Richard and Maria. I know this weighs heavy on your shoulders, and it's a deep passion that is really evident in the way that you pursue this. So thank you for that. Crew. I don't know what Nolene's going to do with all of her spare time now that she doesn't have to make food for us every Wednesday evening. But maybe you could ask her to make a meal every so often. They've been some great supporters in supporting Nolene and doing that. Thank you to Helen and Jono for being MCs on previous nights. Thank you for everyone who has attended. Phil, do you have a...
Yes, if you don't mind. I don't want to talk people out of coming back to this group, which is a great group, but if you know people that live further afield, Reconciliation New South Wales has a website, and on that they list all the different reconciliation groups around the Sydney metropolitan area. So you might encourage the people you know, or if you're a bit closer on, so I know Mount Drew Reconciliation is one group, and there are quite a few other groups, but you're most welcome to come here, but there are other groups, Reconciliation New South Wales website.
Yeah, so yes.
And could we change the face of our parliamentarians by encouraging young people to go to youth parliament? Year 10 and 12, the cut-off is in January, so they really have to do it with their schools and their teachers this year for next year. Year 10 and 12 and a little bit beyond. And there are scholarships. Don't worry about the money. Last year, Youth Parliament New South Wales through the YMCA got a $50,000 regional grant.
Okay, thanks, Vera. I'm going to say, hands up if you want the conversation to continue. If you're having fantastic, pull out your phones. 20th of November, come along and you can continue the conversation with this fantastic group of people, and we can talk about fantastic ways that we can continue to do truth-telling and that we can continue to make sure that we're pursuing justice for our First Nations people. Thank you. I've got just a note here to say, if you have a moment to help just pack up, it obviously makes it much easier if we all just move our chairs back rather than one or two people doing it. Name badges into that little thing, and your pieces of paper, and yeah, consider the neighbours.
And take some more materials, and we have also Megan Davis, her article that Grace Caskin referred to.
Thank you so much, everyone. Didjurigo, and I will finish with another Darug word, Budjuri Nugati, which is good night.